Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to show you how to make this cute little flower. I got this idea, kind of stemmed from my cupcake video a few years ago, and I've just been wanting to play around with this idea for a while. I felt a little nervous about sharing it with you guys because I'm like, maybe it's not that good, but I'm like, you know what? I like to share the basic idea of how to do something and then see what you guys do with that idea and go wild with it. So hopefully after you watch how I did this, maybe it'll inspire you to go a little step further on it than I probably did. But I really thought this was cute. It kind of reminds me of like slightly like a dandelion or a mum, and of course there's a little green there which helps, and you can kind of use it to attach to different projects or even use on a wreath or put it on a painting. I talk about some things at the end of the video that you could do with this, but I thought it was really cute and I hope you like it. So let me show you how I made this cute little flower. Okay, to do this flower idea, you're going to need a loom. This loom is from Knitting Boards, and it's a 64 peg loom. It's designed for hats. It came in a set that had like a smaller one for babies, and then this one, and I believe a larger one. I don't remember the exact pegs. I have reviewed the loom before on this channel, and if I can, I will try to link that down below that showcases the other looms. So to get started, like I said, we're going to use this loom. It has 64 pegs, but we only need 32 of them. We're only going to do half. However, if you want your flower to be bigger or smaller, obviously increase or decrease the amount of pegs you are going to use. But for this size, we're going to do only 32 pegs, and the only different thing with this loom compared to like using a nifty knitter or something is there's not a real way to know when the beginning is. So I just used a marker and I marked here so that I would know that that would be like my starting peg, and then I counted 32 and I dropped a stitch marker. All the ones you've seen me use a bazillion times out of this little case. I got them years and years ago from like Joann Fabrics. I like them because they kind of, if you can see close enough, it has like a loop that attaches, so you can take them apart pretty easy if you're working on a project. So I've already marked off 32 pegs, and then of course you're going to need your yarn. I'm using this bright yellow, as you saw. I just thought it was pretty, and then I just saw it was like a darker green. We're only going to be using two different colors. So again, that's what you'll need. You'll need a crochet hook for kind of weaving in any ends. This one is a size, if I can see, E or 4, like size E or 4, 3. I don't know. It's an E. It's really hard to see. I didn't know it was that hard to see. Or a 4 to 3.5 millimeter one, I believe. It's kind of the one I always use in a way. Whichever crochet hook will work for you. For the size yarn, obviously scissors. I'm using a Knitting Board looming tool. It's not bad. I've used it a few times now. I don't mind it. I did have people say that sometimes this metal part came out and broke off because maybe their tension was too tight, so keep that in mind if you do get this. I still use my other ones from time to time that were the Sheffield brand, that were the looming picks, like mainly for like automobile work, but they worked really well, so I still use them sometimes. But I've been just trying to practice more with these. I do like how long the handle is. If you have any issues with your hands, these will probably help a little bit. The other thing you're going to need is, if you still have one, I have a plastic needle in case I need to thread, like sew anything up at the end. This came with, I think this is old. This came from my Nifty Knitters set years ago, but I do have a white one that came with a different set. I mean, normally I think you get a plastic needle with some of the different loom sets, but if not, a plastic needle like this will work. Okay, so we got our supplies. Now let's get into making this flower. Okay, we're gonna just keep it kind of simple for this. I wanted this again to be kind of a project that it could be done pretty quickly, and you could do a bunch at once if you want to use for different projects. Again, stay true to the end and I'll tell you different ways that you might be able to utilize this flower in projects. But we're going to keep it simple. I always like keeping simple, and then you can always take this idea and run with it. I love to see what you guys do with projects that I introduce you guys to. So the first one I'm going to do is an E-wrap cast on for the 32 pegs. So I got my yarn, do my little slip knot here, and then I'm going to place it again. With this loom, I had to mark a spot to let me know where I want the beginning to start, and then we're just going to E-wrap cast on. So we're going to work our way over to where I marked off with the stitch marker. Okay, we're getting close to where I have my stitch marker. Once I put this to that peg, when I get close to it, I know that's the one. I can kind of remove that because I know I'm only going to this part, and that way this is no longer needed. Again, this is a close-up of it. This is no longer needed. Just move it off to the side. And now for the E-wrap cast on, we got to work our way back. I always try to explain things as best I can in detail, even if it is something, if you're been viewing me for years and you know how to do the E-wrap cast on, I still try to tackle each video as if somebody was watching this video for the first time and didn't know how to do stuff. Now what you could also do with the E-wrap when you're going back, make sure your tension is a little loose. You don't want it too tight. And if you want, you can already start to knit them over and not wait till the end to knit it over. Just work your way back to the beginning. Okay, we're back to the beginning. I'm going to quickly knit over all these rest of these that didn't get knitted over yet. Okay, so now we're back to the beginning. We're going to make sure we push all the loops down so that we have room to work for the next part. Okay, now for this part, we're basically working one peg at a time, and we're going to be rewrapping a peg 8 times. That's going to give us that like poofiness, I guess you could say, of the flower. So what we're going to do is we're not going to worry about wrapping the first peg that many times, but then what we're going to do is we're going to go to the second peg and we're going to wrap it once. Wrap it twice. So it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just kind of push this out of your way towards the back. 6. There we go. 7. And now our last 8. Okay. And then all you're going to do is move right over to the next one and do the same thing. So we got the first one done, and we just do the same thing on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and again push that towards the back, and 8. So go ahead and continue this all the way to our last peg. I'm going to go off camera and do that. When I come back, we'll move on to the next part. Okay, I'm going to do the last peg with the 8 on it. So we got our 1, 2, 3. I'm going to push the other one back so it's out of my way. 3, okay, and 4, 5, 6, 7, and finally 8. This is probably the part that takes the longest, is doing all these pegs. So you got your 8 pegs, and you kind of see on the inside how it's kind of looking. That's going to be cute once we roll it all up. So now what we want to do is I'm going to quickly do one row of E-wrap back to the beginning, and then we're going to switch our colors. Okay, so back, I'm going to push these down. Again, this is how it's looking on the inside. We got our little dewies, which I've kind of done this before on other projects a little bit, and then it just got into my head like, well, maybe I can do a cute flower with this. So sometimes one idea you do for one thing can make sense for a different project. So now what I want to do is I want to change the color to our dark green. That way the side of the flower will look like it's kind of blooming out, and so this is going to be underneath it. So our trusty scissors, and we're going to like cut the yarn and tie the other one to it. That's just the way I do it. I will hide any ends later. So I'm just going to cut you. Grab my green. Like I said, this is a nice dark green. If it's not showing up on camera right, it is a nice dark green. So I thought it'd be a nice contrast to the yellow. Okay, and we're just going to tie it. There's other ways I think you can do it where you don't have to knot as much. This is just my tried and true. I just tend to tie them one to the other and then just hide the stragglers in later. You want to kind of get as close to the beginning as you can. I used to do 2 knots. So see, we just tied it to the other. And now, excuse me, we just got to work our way back and forth for about 4 rows, because we just did 1 row when we did our E-wrap. So now we need to do our 4 rows of just doing plain E-wrap again for 4 rows with the green. And this will kind of give us our other base. Now again, because we have these tails, I'm going to worry about weaving them in after I get this off the loom. So again, what I want to do is I'm actually going to go back to the first peg, and I'm going to make that green now. Normally I would skip this peg and I would just start over, but I decided I wanted to, this one I'm going to knit it over there so that green is all the way through. And again, we're just going to E-wrap it back the other way. Like I said, just doing a simple E-wrap knit. So I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to E-wrap for 4 rows. So this will be row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, and then we'll come back and do the next part. Okay, we're on our last 2 pegs that we E-wrap to get back to the beginning. Go ahead and kind of push these down out of your way. And this is what the inside will be looking like. You got your nice 2 different color choices there. And now it's time to actually take this off the loom. And this is going to be done with doing like a crochet cast off with 1 chain in between. So we're going to, I'm just moving my notes out of the way here. So now we're going to take this off. We're going to just use our our looming tool and the crochet hook if we need to at the end, along with having our scissors when we get to the end as well. So for this means that we're going to, I want to make sure I explain this right. Okay, so I'm going to wrap the first peg once. We're going to knit it over. We're going to then move it over. Knit it over. 1 chain, so 1 wrap around. Knit it over. Move it over. Okay, then we're going to knit it over. I apologize for the colors not being too different, but I'm hoping that you can see well enough that this is our 2 loops. So we're going to knit it over. 1 chain in between. Knit over. Move it over. I might have just did 2 on that one, I'm sorry. If you mess up, it's not going to hurt the project too much, so then you knit it over. 1 chain. Knit it over. Move it over. Knit it over. 1 chain. Move it over. Knit it over. Chain. Knit over. Move it over. Knit over. Chain. Knit over. Move over. Keep doing this until you get to the end of this, to get to your ending peg, and then we'll move on to the next part. Okay, we're on the last couple pegs. I just need to move this one over. Again, knit over, extra loop in between, knit over, move over to the last peg, knit over, and now this is where your crochet hook will come in handy, because when you take this off the loom, like I said, you can put it on your looming tool and then go ahead and transfer it to your crochet hook, the loop you still have. Okay, and then you can go ahead and, cut a long enough tail. I mean, you can always shorten the tail later, just cut a tail. Let's move this out of our way. And then we're going to take our yarn and we're just going to go through to kind of lock that in place. I sometimes like to give it another little knot at the end, just what I choose to do. Okay, and then I can take and I can cut this tail even a little shorter. I'll hide it into the project more in a minute. So let me just lower us down here. Alright, so now we have our strip. And now what we're going to do is we're going to roll the strip. This is how we create the flowers. So it doesn't, yes, it's curling a little bit, it's fine. If you want to do garter for those 4 rows, garter stitch, that's fine. But you just kind of stretch it out and then decide which way you want to roll it. Since of course we don't want this line to show, we want this side to show. We're going to hide this into the project first. Let me zoom in here. Make sure it's okay. So we're going to take this little tail we have and I want to hide it into the project now before I roll it. So I'm just going to pick a stitch like next to it and just kind of use my crochet hook to kind of hide it into the project in some of the loops that are in the project. Okay, I'm just going to hide it in there so it's less noticeable when we roll it. And then you can do the same on this side. So we have all our stragglers. Go ahead and hide your stragglers in as best you can, and then you can trim them. So I'm just gonna, things don't want to cooperate today. Get in there. It's a little easier to do when you're not, when I'd have it in a different spot if I was not behind the camera. But again, I'm just finding a stitch. Again, this usually doesn't, and then I'm just grabbing that working tail. I'm just kind of moving it into the project, and then I can trim it a little more before I roll this up. Okay, you are fighting me, so we're just going to trim you. Okay. A little bit. Okay. And this one's kind of still that, so I'm going to bring this one over. Like I said, we're just kind of hiding it in, because when we roll it, it'll hide it as well. We just want to kind of get it out of the space, out of it fully showing up. This is really not difficult, but I'm making it more difficult because things don't want to cooperate right now. Wait, I give up. Okay, forget it. We'll hide it later. So, I don't know why it's fighting me so much to do what I normally do. But anyhow, since we don't want this line to show up, we want this to be the outside. Again, it's a bright yellow with the green. I'm not sure if it's showing up as yellow on camera right now, but it is more of a, let's see if I change the lighting here. It is more yellow than it seems. And now we're just going to roll it so that we make sure this outside is seen. Again, you can do the garter stitch if you want. I'm going to start with the side that I have the most that I want to hide. So we're just going to kind of stretch it out. Again, you can choose to do the garter stitch if you want to help with this process. And then all we're going to do is we're going to take this little piece, we'll tuck it in a little bit, and we're just going to roll the flower up. It's as tight or as loose as you want to wrap it. And that's what I kind of liked about this, is you can make it a tighter flower if you want, or you can make it a less flower. You can choose not to do as many rows at the bottom. And then once you get it like this, we have our cute little flower of all those little nubbins we created. And you can kind of flatten them out and fluff them around as you want, and then it kind of shrinks down there. Now what you're probably saying, well, how do you keep this part closed? We're just going to sew this and kind of try to hide things as best we can. We'll end up having like a flat surface on the bottom, which will kind of allow you to be able to kind of glue it onto things, but we're going to quickly try to just sew up right here. So let me get my thread or my needle. Now when I originally did a sample of this, I had used yellow yarn, but of course you want to match the color that's on there so that way it wouldn't be so bad. So I'm going to grab my green, and I usually grab more than I need because it's always better to have too much on there. So we threaded our needle, okay, and so we're going to line up both ends. As you can see here, line up both ends. Now there's probably a different way to sew this. I'm not a professional sewer, but you want to make sure you have a little bit of a tail on this when you do your little knot. Look, I'm doing as little bit of a tail as I can because I know I'm going to need to hide it later. So now you're just going to sew the flower closed. Again, you can modify like how tight you want this wrapped. I mean, you can go super tight or you can do super loose, but you basically just want to kind of get it, this part attached to the beginning part. So I'm just trying to reline it back up. Then I will take my needle and thread, or my needle and yarn. If you probably wanted to use sewing thread, it might work better. I just don't know where mine is. So I'm using yarn, but if you probably had green thread, like for sewing, you could probably do this a lot better. So just pick a spot and just kind of, you see, I'm just trying to like get it to close off, and then I will hide the stragglers later. I feel like this project just wants to fight me. Okay. Again, we're going to hide those. Don't worry about what you see. We just want it to be kind of closed off a little bit. And then what I'm going to do with this, while I have it right here, and I've got probably the wrong size crochet hook right now, is I'm going to take this tail. Okay. I'm going to take, I still have it sewing here, but I want to kind of hide this while I'm thinking of it. So I'm just going to try to do the same thing I did before, where we're just going to try to bring it into the project. I get it on the bottom of it, and then I can hide it again later. And then I have this now to totally sew it off, as I'm going to go in. And then I'm going to, it's definitely a little trickier to show on camera than when you're off. When you get sort of a loop, you bring it back through the loop. But you could probably, like I said, use a crochet hook to do the same thing. You could probably use sewing. If you're a better sewer, you might be able to use regular needle and thread to do something with it. It's just, it is a little tricky sometimes for us to show you guys stuff on camera that we can more easily do off camera. Okay. That aside. Now I know what you're thinking, got these little stragglers are in the way. Again, you're just going to use whatever means necessary to kind of tuck them into the project wherever you can. And again, sometimes they might not even be that noticeable. Again, depending on what you do with this afterwards, you may not even need to see them. Like I said, there, I'm just going to hide that in. And now we have our cute little, kind of reminds me of like a dandelion or like a mum or something like that. And then we got our little green on there. Now, what can you do with this? And I know at the beginning I said I would show you some ideas of what to do at the beginning. And one of the ideas I had was to take a canvas, like a small canvas, big canvas, depending, and almost glue these onto the canvas to kind of make a like 3D kind of painting, where I'd paint the bottom maybe green, or maybe I'd make it look like there was a vase and these were sticking out of it. I thought that would be kind of a fun project. Another thing to do would be to take a wreath ring and maybe put flat yarn on it first, like a flat panel on it first, and then glue these on the wreath. I think that could look cute. You could also, because it's kind of a flat bottom, you could use craft glue, because I would recommend that over like hot glue maybe. Craft glue, and you could glue it onto, try gluing it onto a bag or maybe a headband to see how you like that. And what I also noticed, like with my sample, which I just had my sample, like when I originally did this is the one I did. This was using almost all the pegs when I did my thing. So this is like if you used all 64 pegs, or about 62, because I didn't want to accidentally join it. So if you use all 62 pegs, you'd end up with something this big. This was using half the peg. So again, you can modify how many you wanted. This one I didn't change to the green, but I really do like the green better. I think it gives it a little more flower illusion. And the other thing I noticed with this one is I can kind of flatten it down so you really don't see it. In the same way with this, even though it's that high, we can kind of almost flatten it down and kind of whoosh it a little bit, and it won't stick up as high. Another idea you could have is if you had any like wooden dowels, and of course I didn't have any, but I have a pencil. If you, before you rolled it up, had glued a wooden dowel into it that you maybe painted green, you can make a cute little flower. Like you glue this on before you roll it, and well, not this. Obviously you don't want a bam, wow, pow kind of stick, but say, or even you could find some old pencils paint the pencils green if you like the size of them, or find wooden dowels and paint them, and put that in before you roll it and glue it to the yarn, and then roll it around it, and then you could have a nice little flower that way. But again, I like the versatility of it, that you can do quite a few different projects with it. And if you like this flower idea, please hit that thumbs up button and make sure you subscribe to the channel to hear about my next idea. And if you haven't also, please, 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 please share my videos with anybody else you know that would be interested in loom knitting crafts. I'm really trying to reach 18,000 subscribers by the end of 2024, and I know I could do it with your guys' help. So please share this if you like it. And again, I thought this would be a really cute little idea. It kind of stems from my cupcake video that I did years ago. So I will try to link the cupcake video down below as well, because I did that a little differently with different yarns. And this is, like I said, I just thought this came out really cute and for a little flower idea. So I want to again thank you guys for watching, and I can't wait for you guys to see my next video that is in the works. Have a great day, everyone.